reminding you of that. It wasn't by pinfall or submission, and a victory over John Cena with help from Jon Stewart, a former talk show host of The Daily Show, doesn't really prove anything. In my opinion, a couple of countouts, disqualification victories over the last couple of months, the majority of them, by the way, for those of you keeping track at home, have come from disqualification and countout victories, which really is no way for a champion to present himself or conduct business. So I really think he still has a long way to go. Again, a victory over Brock Lesnar or John Cena here and there really hasn't proven anything to me. And to refer to yourself as a god and the greatest of all time and the man, with Triple H and Stephanie giving him enough confidence to have convinced Seth Rollins that he actually is what they're putting him over for being, which I highly doubt Triple H and Stephanie think he is when it comes to being the future of WWE, because they themselves know that Seth Rollins still has a lot to prove, even though they believe he's ready to be in these matches. There's still a long way to go for Seth Rollins, and he has a milestone to get past now. He's gotten to the milestone of being put in a match with Sting at Night of Champions and possibly John Cena, and having to do double duty at the Night of Champions pay-per-view. If he doesn't have to go as far as to face two of them, and a triple threat match for both championships, where whoever pins whoever in the match will become either U.S. or WWE champion, whatever the rules will be for a triple threat match if it were to come down to that. If not the double duty, where Seth Rollins would have to defend both titles in two separate matches against Cena and Sting. There are a lot of scenarios to look at when it comes to the Night of Champions pay-per-view, because it's a pay-per-view where they're promoting every championship to be on the line. Now, it will be very weird if they're promoting it as a pay-per-view where every title is on the line, but one title, when it comes to the U.S. or either the WWE Championship, is not on the line, because the champion has to hold both championships and defend one title in a match, and obviously it would be the main championship, so obviously the promotion of the pay-per-view would have been defeated if one championship, when it came to the U.S. WWE titles, were not on the line in the match with either John Cena or Sting. Somehow John Cena has to fit into an angle at Night of Champions, and if he were to fit into an angle with Jon Stewart, obviously a championship wouldn't be on the line unless someone like Jon Stewart represented a champion like the Intercontinental or Tag Team Champions in a match. Something like that would have to play out in order for the John Cena-Jon Stewart angle to work at Night of Champions if he didn't go the route of facing Seth Rollins for one of the two championships, or in a triple threat match with Sting thrown into the mix, which would make the match by far more interesting than just having someone like John Cena facing Seth Rollins in the fallout of SummerSlam. There's a lot of ways this can go, but I think leaving it up to Sting and Seth Rollins will make for a great pay-per-view buy rate, and will make for a lot of great conversation on social media already. There's a lot of conversation about Sting and what would happen if Sting won the championship, a championship that's obviously not eluded him for his entire career. It's only eluded him because he's wanted nothing to do with WWE. If he were to have signed with WWE back when they were having the war with World Championship Wrestling, or jump ship or something like that, or been involved with the Alliance angle from 2000 to 2001, I think Sting would have been champion. I think they would have gave Sting the belt, because Sting, of course, was obviously the biggest name to have come out of World Championship Wrestling. He stayed away from WWE for what was 14 years, pretty close to 15 by the time he signed the Legends contract with the company. And this is really what he's been thriving his arrival out of WWE off of, how he's hated WWE for purchasing World Championship Wrestling and literally shafting over half the roster who worked their asses off to get to a point of being champion and being called some of the greatest of all time, without a doubt. World Championship Wrestling, without having being given credit, produced some of the greatest wrestlers of all time: Diamond Dallas Page, Goldberg. So many great wrestlers were produced by World Championship Wrestling, if not produced, reproduced by WCW, because they were known for redistributing names that other wrestling promotions had distributed before they had the chance to do so by signing them out of contract. Sting was obviously someone who they created and really made a big name, giving him 6 WCW championship reigns. So obviously being the poster child of that company had a lot of influence on WWE wanting him for years, and he just refused them time and time again until this point. So being WWE champion, the good thing about it is now if he wins the championship at Night of Champions, it will have more meaning behind him winning it for the first time ever, even if it's only just for one reign, just to say he was WWE champion. I think this would make for great pay-per-view buy rates and a lot of conversation on social media, because just as many fans of Sting we have out there, we have just as many of the Authority and Seth Rollins, which I hate to admit. I wish that Seth Rollins had no fans out there. Obviously, he has more haters than he does fans, but Seth Rollins does have his fan wagon out there that are going to be for him in this match with Sting, because there are those people out there, as much as I hate to admit it, that don't want to see Sting as champion. And the biggest fans that Sting has out there are the fans of WCW, but the biggest haters he has out there are the executives of WWE, and that's a variable definitely weighing on the shoulders of Sting going into this match, because with just as many people that are out there that want Sting to be champion who are executives of WWE, there are opposing people who are against Sting being champion of WWE, because there's no way Vince is going to let WCW win. He didn't let them win at WrestleMania this year in that match with Sting and Triple H, and I can see it going the way of him not wanting Sting to be champion of his company, a man who almost put WWE out of business, becoming WWE champion. It creates a lot of controversy, which is a good way of looking at it. But is Vince really going to let World Championship Wrestling win after all these years? And it would be the perfect way for WCW to fire back if Sting were to win the championship. So with just as many people who want to see Sting as champion, there are those opposing that and that suggestion by not really being for Sting being champion. And the biggest hater Sting may have out there is Vince McMahon. And the only reason why he signed to a contract is because of the publicity WWE would receive and the controversy they could create off of signing Sting, which obviously they have. So there are more variables holding Sting down going into this match, being Triple H and Vince being two of the biggest, than there are that are actually for Sting. But hopefully the Sting fan wagon will carry him through glory at Night of Champions, and he will realize his destiny of becoming WWE champion, or at least what he thinks is his destiny at this point after holding the WCW and TNA championships. The WWE one has eluded him. So why not give it to him, even if it's just for one reign that could last anywhere from 4 to 6 months. I think 4 months even would be a meaningful reign for Sting, because he would get a couple of successful championship defenses in there if he were champion, no matter who it was against. It could be against new talent, against wrestlers, legends like Brock Lesnar or John Cena. By the way, John Cena versus Sting is a dream match I'm really hoping we see, along with Sting versus The Undertaker, which is the biggest wrestling fans want. I also have suggested the scenario of Sting becoming champion at Night of Champions, now that I know Sting and Seth Rollins are going to be facing each other at Night of Champions, which I thought was going to be the time that Seth Rollins not only would face Sting, but also lose the championship. If Sting does win the championship, my prediction holds true of Seth Rollins coughing up the belt at Night of Champions. Would it be possible to see Sting go to WrestleMania as champion, hold on to the title for at least 6 or 7 months, make it to WrestleMania 32, and face The Undertaker as the winner of the 2016 Royal Rumble, with Stone Cold Steve Austin on the cover of 2K16, having a legend like The Undertaker win the Royal Rumble, being just the second time in his career he would have done so, going to WrestleMania to face Sting for the championship. It fits perfectly with the venue and the circumstances of the possibility in his 26th year of The Undertaker retiring in his final match against Sting. There's just something about The Undertaker versus Sting that fits perfectly with WrestleMania 32 this year, and to make it that much more perfect, to have it be for the championship. If Sting makes it to WrestleMania off Night of Champions, still as champion in his inaugural reign, it would not only be meaningful for Sting to lose the championship to The Undertaker or beat The Undertaker in this match, no matter what way it went, but it would also just make for a perfect reign for Sting to have had in his inaugural reign as champion, and one without a doubt wrestling fans would remember. But regardless of how this one goes, win or lose for Sting, Sting will definitely go down swinging just as he did at WrestleMania, and it will give us something to talk about at least for the next 3 or 4 months out of the next 6 that we're going to be witnessing in wrestling, which are going to be very interesting with how exuberant the storylines have gotten over the last number of months. And exuberant is a word that I've been using very often here lately on this radio show, because I think that wrestling is getting very exuberant, far more exuberant than what it was for the better part of the last 6 through 8 months when it was really dry. We were going through a dry period with wrestling. That's something that really irritated me about the product. The same thing was happening with the same champions and the same challengers, no matter what division you were talking about. You could be talking about the Intercontinental, the Divas division. It was the same thing happening over and over and over, and it was the same thing happening even outside of divisions that didn't even have anything to do with championships when it came to people like Brock Lesnar and the Wyatt family and Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose. The same thing happening over and over and over. The same people getting opportunities, the same people being shafted, and as a result we were seeing declines in ratings and very negative reviews being thrown the way of major wrestling promotions like WWE and TNA. It wasn't just one wrestling promotion that was really dry, it was both WWE and TNA, because there was nothing really happening in the major promotions. And you may be saying this to yourself because I'm just making an assumption that I'm just really jumping the gun. But really, what's happened in either WWE, TNA, or even Ring of Honor in the last 6 or 7 months is actually worth talking about. The only good thing that's happened in the last 6 months is how much the Divas division has changed, with the Divas Revolution going up against Team PCB or the Divas Revolution, call them what you wish. There's a lot of diversity being talked about when it comes to women's wrestling now, and that's really the only thing worth talking about in wrestling. The product's been really dry in the last 6 months, so only now The product is getting interesting around the first ever 4-hour SummerSlam and its fallout. Now we're looking ahead to Night of Champions, which comes your way on September 20th on the WWE Network and exclusively on pay-per-view. And I think this is the time now to become a wrestling fan, if there ever was a time to become a wrestling fan, because it's getting far more interesting, and even more so now that Sting is back and he wants the WWE Championship over his shoulder and around his waist for the first time ever. Woo, definitely. One promo that I will never forget is the first night Sting showed up in the fall of WrestleMania 31 and SummerSlam when he raised that championship over his head, and Stephanie kept repeating in her head, never, 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 and shouted it a couple of times towards Sting when he raised the championship over his head. Sting wants that championship. Will it come into fruition? Will Sting become champion? We're just going to have to wait and find out what way it goes and what direction we're headed in when it comes to the road to the Night of Champions pay-per-view, the only night of the year when every championship is going to be on the line. We have the Dudley Boys, of course, stating a claim they want to be number one contenders for the tag team titles for the New Day, and we have Sting now with his claim to be either WWE or United States champion, possibly both. Whatever way it goes, there are a number of scenarios to look at. I suggested the possibility of Seth Rollins defending the title in double duty in 2 separate matches, pulling a WrestleMania X out of his hat, facing both Sting and John Cena, or a triple threat match where both titles will be on the line regardless of what the stipulation would be in the match. Say Cena gets the pinfall over Seth Rollins, he becomes U.S. champion. If Sting gets the pinfall over Seth Rollins, being number one contender for the major championship, he would come out of the match as WWE champion. There's a lot of ways this one could go, but regardless, it's a very fun time to be a wrestling fan, and it's a time that you should take full advantage of. Woo, with no disrespect to either Flair or Sting. It's a really fun time to be a wrestling fan, and it is time now for us to watch the product and be exuberant by what it's offering, because it's a really fun time for us all. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and what I've got for you now, it's Jason Derulo. I want you to want me. He is fresh off his breakup with Jordan Sparks. Here he is for you now, and I will see you next week.
Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.